but at least she comes across here as professional in what she's saying, and she seems to think a deal is coming. And let's be real. Regardless of how tough Collier wants to talk, we're not going to cave in. Well, if you want to play basketball in the WNBA, you're going to have to. Because they're going to shut the league down if you don't. They're not giving you 30% revenue or whatever in the hell that ridiculousness is.
In a dark gym with big, flashy branding, something ambitious is happening. People are being told they are watching a cultural revolution, even though most viewers haven't even changed the channel. The idea seems simple. Take the excitement that followed Caitlin Clark and copy it onto Paige Bueckers, hoping the ratings will suddenly rise. But what actually happened is much more confusing, a little funny, and impossible to ignore.
Be seeing its final days as Paige Bueckers and gang could not save the viewership from tanking. What does this mean for the WNBA when they make their return back to TV? There has been news to come out about Unrivaled viewership being down nearly 70% from last year. Now, I'm going to tell y'all why this is bad. Because last year, it wasn't like they was cracking hella views to begin with. They wasn't even getting hella views at all last year. Now, this year, their views is down by nearly 7%.
The league is once again dealing with problems it created itself. Even so, it looks straight at the camera and confidently says everything is fine, acting like the storm around it is just part of the plan.
That you're sitting in front of everybody, in front of all these fans and saying, we don't want raises. They're at 9 times what, by the end of the next CBA, it would literally be a 9 times salary increase. You're telling people you don't want that. You got to be kidding me, right? It's not a good look. After complaining about, because for years, all we heard about was money. So after years of complaining about money, now it's not about money anymore. You want it to be about...
In meeting rooms, half-empty arenas, and overly positive press releases, a belief has grown that all problems can be fixed by simply announcing a new superstar and expecting the audience to accept it without question.
End of the season, we start seeing the WNBA kind of fudge the numbers, taking into account group party watch party viewerships, counting those into, effect like bars and stuff like that. Now, with that being said, that metric kind of lied about the numbers allegedly being what they was to close out the WNBA season. Now, we're getting data from the Unrivaled pretty much claiming that their number...
This time, the league is trying to capture the same excitement that came with Caitlin Clark, put a new label on it, and present it as Paige Bueckers. The problem is, the huge crowds that naturally came before are not showing up in the same way.
So I got to talk about Paige Bueckers. And no, I'm not talking about Paige Bueckers because people are talking about Candace Parker talking about Paige Bueckers. I was really harping on Paige Bueckers Monday night during Unrivaled, her debut with Unrivaled, her team, what are they called again? The Breeze. It's a new team. The Breeze taking on the Phantom. I didn't realize how much of a ball hog Paige Bueckers is.
The strategy sounds simple, but feels confusing in reality. The plan does not seem to include the idea of letting interest grow naturally, which would require patience and honesty. At the same time, labor talks are still unsettled, like a group project no one prepared for. Publicly, the league tries to sound positive, saying progress is being made and everything will work out. Meanwhile, others are openly sharing their frustrations, making things look even worse. In the middle of it all, the league is trying to sell hope while still figuring out how to survive.
Caitlin, of course, we go way back, Midwestern. We had a lot of battles in AAU and stuff like that. We played together on Team USA. I think she's just a competitor. She wants to win. She has just intangibles of the game. She knows how to play, great IQ. But I think the biggest thing about her is she competes, and she's just a winner. She wants to win at all costs. And so I know going into that, it'll be a great matchup. But I'm excited. It's great for the game.
Professionalism has become a popular word, mostly because it sounds good. Some players understand that public negotiations require calm language and self-control. Others seem to turn every disagreement into a public drama, thinking that complaining online will help their position. As a result, the negotiation process feels less like serious business and more like a reality TV storyline. It also raises concerns when players connected to a rival league want influence over important decisions. Possible conflicts of interest are brushed aside with vague promises about shared goals. It feels like everyone is pretending that ownership, leadership, and labor can mix perfectly without tension. Still, none of this would matter as much if fans were fully interested in the product. Instead of earning attention, the league seems to be demanding it. The new league, advertised as bold and innovative, still looks like it is trying to figure out its true purpose.
There who are going to say, not you piling on Paige Beckers. What do you mean? She's a ball. She's a ball. She was playing 1-on-3 in that game on Monday night. So yes, I know she scored 24 points. I expect her to score 24 points because she didn't want to pass the ball. Now, you might say, well, Adrian, she had 6 assists.
The games are promoted as groundbreaking and exciting, and the players are called icons. But viewers quietly wonder why the arena looks dim and why the games feel more like practice matches than must-watch events. In this setting, Paige Bueckers steps in. She is not simply allowed to grow naturally as a professional player. Instead, she is presented as someone who must carry the hopes of the entire league. She is described not just as talented, but as someone who should change everything. Caitlin Clark did not become famous because executives said she would. She became popular because fans truly connected with her style and exciting moments. Trying to recreate that same impact just by insisting on it misses what made it special.
Oh, the first set of unrivaled ratings are in, and it's been kind of grim. And by kind of grim, I mean really, really grim. If you are unrivaled, this is if these are your ratings every single week on True TV, it's not the biggest disaster in the world, because by the looks of things, these True TV ratings were similar enough to what they were a year ago. Similar enough to what they were a year ago.
League leaders talk about culture as if it matters more than competition. It sometimes feels like they believe fans watch for the vibe instead of the actual basketball. Culture and messaging are pushed as the main selling points, while the game itself feels secondary. Fans are expected to care deeply about identity and symbolism, even if they cannot remember the teams or results the next day. Games are described as historic, yet they barely make an impact in the larger sports world. A big performance is celebrated inside the league, while most people outside do not even notice. Announcing percentage growth without explaining the starting numbers may sound impressive, but it does not build real trust.
Numbers going around on the internet, and it doesn't look good at all. But I do want to tell you guys that this isn't the final number. All right, this is just, I believe, a certain age group. I think it's like 18 to 49, and they didn't necessarily count everybody who was watching on HBO Max, all that good stuff. I think it will finish around 200,000, 190,000 like it did last year. I don't think it'll be an increase like that, although they did add a good amount of new players.
There is strong confidence when talking about partnerships with bigger, established leagues, even though the league is still trying to prove it can succeed on its own. Offers are presented as if they are powerful opportunities, not requests for support. It feels optimistic, almost unrealistic. Meanwhile, arenas are still small, attendance is limited, and the largest crowds usually show up when a certain team from Indiana comes to town. This is not criticism of Paige Bueckers' talent, but of the heavy expectations placed on her. A star cannot create excitement alone, and no branding can replace the natural connection between a player and the fans.
Unrivaled is sustainable, they say. They say. Ratings have come out for Unrivaled, and folks, if I was to say fall off a cliff, if I was to say significant drop-off, I would be underselling how underperforming day one of Unrivaled really was. Remember during the WNBA season? Oh my gosh, all the ratings, the record ratings, blah.
The situation is made more complicated by the feeling that the league promotes its own circle while ignoring outsiders. Certain schools, stories, and former players seem to stay in the spotlight through leadership roles and media praise. This creates a cycle where being familiar is mistaken for being dominant. But sports fans are not required to care just because they are told to. Interest is not a favor fans owe to a league. It must be earned through exciting competition, good storytelling, and real, unforgettable moments. Saying someone is great is easy. Keeping people's attention is much harder. As deadlines get closer and negotiations continue, the league tries to sound calm while also showing urgency. Expansion plans and free agency add pressure, even though progress feels slow. In the end, trying to give Paige Bueckers the same impact as Caitlin Clark shows a misunderstanding of how stars are truly created. Real growth takes patience, honesty, and the courage to face reality instead of simply rebranding it.
Said, the fact that the Rose and Lunar Owls on the primetime slot on TNT had this, I don't think this is 40,000 viewers, because I think this is the NA is the actual viewer. I think this is like the ratings numbers. I think this is in and around 100,000 viewers, which isn't good. Last year it was, am I right in saying last year at 1.0? No, last year was 0.1.
For now, the show goes on. There are big promises, carefully chosen positive words, and constant hope that the audience will respond just because they are being asked to. But the excitement does not match the advertising. It feels quiet, even though it was supposed to feel loud and thrilling. And that silence is what no one wants to admit. Silence cannot be turned into a trending topic. It cannot boost statistics or magically turn culture into money. Silence simply reminds everyone that real excitement cannot be forced, and fans cannot be made to care through pressure or guilt. You can change the name, update the graphics, dim the lights, and talk about a big vision, but silence does not react. This approach avoids blaming leadership and instead quietly suggests the public is at fault for not showing enough interest.
Time window of games. The 8 o'clock game and the 9:15 game, or the 9:30 game, whatever heck time it was. 175,000 viewers. The afternoon window averaged 107,000 viewers. All that, if you're a 90s baby, you know. All that is down from 208,000 average viewership during regular season games in Unrivaled year.
The truth is, the Caitlin Clark effect was never complicated. It came from real competition, natural moments, and a player who performed strongly under pressure. The excitement followed what happened on the court. It was not created by marketing alone. Trying to copy that by focusing more on image than performance is like caring more about the box than what is inside it. It is also uncomfortable to see a young star used mainly as a marketing tool. Instead of simply letting her play and grow, every good game becomes proof that a business idea is working, and every average game is ignored. That is not fair and cannot last forever. At the same time, the league faces other problems. It talks about sharing revenue before steady revenue is even there. It discusses expansion while still building its foundation. People notice when the loudest voices are explaining why the league matters instead of fans naturally showing that it does. They notice when the conversation is more about defending the product than celebrating the game itself.
Right? But in basketball, you have men and women. As you see in this graph, you have Caitlin Clark, Cooper Flagg, Victor Wembanyama, LeBron James, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, right? So the fact that you have men and women and seeing how the men's basketball league is flourishing, right, has way more people watching than the WNBA right now. You have Caitlin Clark dominating the match.
The constant push to create urgency only makes the gap more obvious. Deadlines are presented as dramatic moments, but they rarely change the viewing experience. Negotiations are described as major battles, yet the final results usually feel routine. Most of the drama happens in interviews and press conferences, not on the court. What makes this situation interesting is not just that it may be struggling, but that it refuses to admit that possibility. Weak reactions are described as hidden potential. Lukewarm responses are called progress. Comparisons to Caitlin Clark are treated as guaranteed, not hopeful. The league talks as if success is certain, even when signs suggest otherwise. In the end, lightning cannot be controlled by branding or strategy. It happens naturally, and the crowd either feels it or they do not. Until that truth is accepted, trying to recreate the Caitlin Clark effect will seem less like smart innovation and more like a confident misunderstanding shared with an audience still waiting for real excitement.